Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and this is intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. Our guest is one of our few returning guests now, Wesley Taylor, who was one of the very, very first episodes that I ever put out. He was originally episode 3, which, as I bring up in the episode, came out in November 2018, right when this was just a little baby podcast. I can't believe so much has changed in 5 years since I've last spoken to him in a recorded way. And gosh, it was really cool because in that first episode 5 years ago, he said, yeah, maybe I'll start taking myself seriously as a writer. I think I need to do that now. And then now we're here talking about his brand new movie that he co-wrote and co-directed called Summoning Sylvia, which is just this amazingly fun horror comedy celebrating queer culture and teaching us just to embrace everything about ourselves and who we are. It's this amazing movie that he and Alex Wyse, his writing partner on so many things now, the two of them put together. So cannot wait to share this one with you. Make sure that you go and stream Summoning Sylvia everywhere you find your streaming films. And everybody now, please enjoy this episode with Wesley Taylor.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is a Theater World Award winner, Chita Rivera Award winner, and Outer Critics Circle Award nominee. He made his Broadway debut in the original cast of Rock of Ages before starring opposite Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth in the original cast of Broadway's The Addams Family. Then he originated the role of Sheldon J. Plankton in SpongeBob SquarePants the Musical before it was filmed for Nickelodeon as the SpongeBob Musical live on stage. All right, here we go. We got another paragraph. He has additional credits in television and film that include The Good Wife, The Tomorrow People, and fan favorite Bobby on NBC Smash. He's co-created and starred in 3 original digital series, the latest being the Emmy-nominated Indoor Boys with Alex Wyse. He will appear in Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, dropping this fall, and he and Alex just made their feature film debut as writers and directors in Summoning Sylvia, a new movie that is out now for a limited theatrical release and available to stream. Wesley Taylor, oh my gosh, welcome back to the Theater Podcast. And I want to say welcome back and thank you because you were episode 3 of the Theater Podcast.
No way.
Yes. Do you remember? It was the episode, I don't remember when we actually recorded, but it was November 5th, 2018 that our first episode came out.
Whoa.
Right. So first off, big thank you, because out of the blue, I just texted you and I'm like, I'm doing this crazy ass thing called a podcast. Do you want to be a guest? You're like, sure. I don't know anything about it. Because nothing had been released yet. So you were one of the first to just like put yourself out there and be a guest on what could have been a horrible train wreck and maybe still is. I don't know. Jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying yes.
Of course. I mean, and kind of at the beginning of the podcast explosion.
Right?
Right?
Right.
No, I'm a fan of the show and thank you for having me and for helping us promote this movie.
Dude, the movie Summoning Sylvia, it's so funny. And I was laughing and I was jumping, right? And I'm watching it in bed at night. The cast, it's like you've got Travis Coles, Michael Urie, Frankie Grande, Troy Awado, Noah Ricketts, Vian Cox. Noah J. Ricketts, is that his middle name?
Noah J. Ricketts, yeah.
Yeah. And just this theatrical love cast.
Yes.
But nothing about it is theater. Nothing about this show is theater. But
no. There are times when it feels theatrical and it's about expression and owning your self-expression and stuff. So it does lend itself to, I think, theatrical energy.
Well, I want to dive. Okay, let's dive straight into that, because between 2018 and now 2023, yeah, you've done quite a bit, and it was interesting because I went back and listened to our first episode. And you were like, yeah, I think I'm going to do this writing thing. And I've started to take myself seriously. And, I'm just doing
Is that how I sounded?
Yeah. It was basically,
Yeah.
that's my West
Very
Taylor.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just totally going to take myself.
Yeah.
But now, like, 5 years, which is, I don't think, all that long in this industry. Like, look back at 2018 when like SpongeBob had just closed and Indoor Boys was starting to pick up steam. And like, where did Summoning Sylvia come from? Were you already writing this at that time? We had a whole pandemic in the middle. Like, where do you want to start with this?
Sure. So at the end of season 3 of Indoor Boys, Alex and I wanted to sort of put that world on pause and graduate into feature-length things, whether that be a play or a film or series or whatnot. We wanted to like start writing longer content rather than the bite-sized 10-minute episodes. And so we started writing a screenplay. And then when the pandemic hit, it was sort of a blessing in disguise because we were able to put our acting careers, which were on hold, on the back burner. Usually the writing was on the back burner. So suddenly during the pandemic, Alex and I are getting on Zoom every day for 5 hours and writing. And It's a time of complete creative output. We just generated, we were able to be very productive, which was our silver lining of the pandemic. And we churned out like 3 full-length scripts by the end of our time away from New York City. Or I was away from New York. He was in the Upper West Side the whole time. But we worked on Zoom every day. And we had a movie that got a production company, and we were sort of in the process of attaching talent to secure financing. And we were getting really frustrated with how long development takes.
Yeah.
And how long it was taking to attach high-profile talent to get the money we needed. And so in the meantime, we were like, well, why don't we just write another like sort of indie script a la Indoor Boys that we can make for maybe $100K and like under the radar cast or something. Let's just do our own thing so we don't, we're not just sitting here and twiddling our thumbs. So we did, and we did a first draft reading on Zoom and invited a certain investor, and then after that, we were off to the races because we won over the investor, and then it was easier to raise the rest of the money, and then the train had left the station. So we were suddenly in pre-production for that film, and that sort of jumped in line ahead of the other film. So yeah, that's how it, and the budget got bigger, and the ambitions got bigger, and here we are. Well,
the like, if I didn't know that it was, and I don't know if this is going to come out offensive. I don't know. There's different tiers of budgets, right? Sure. If I did not know that it was like just a ground up, like, what am I saying, grassroots kind of effort, yeah, I would think like this came out of a big studio because it was just done so well. The everything looks 150 million% professional, and again, the cast gels incredibly. Travis Coles doesn't have any Broadway credits that I could find.
Yeah, he's the one that isn't from, I guess, the theater world that we knew of. He
so
really
good.
Came from LA. Yeah, he's really funny. God. He's really funny.
But I want to dive into the story of Summoning Sylvia though, because it's a comedy, and there's the horror aspect to it. It makes you jump, but it also makes you think. And there is, like you said, it's about owning your story, and it's just, I guess, a really subtle way of giving a giant nod to the queer community and owning who you are and being okay with that these days, which is something we really, really need. And yeah. I mean, did you and Alex sort of tackle this story with this intention in mind, or did it come out of like what's the pitch? How do you guys even pitch to each other?
First of all, Indoor Boys that we worked on for 3 years together, and we were the leads of that, and we were writing it and directing it. Indoor Boys was something that was really self-confronting for us sometimes, because we would be editing and we would be de-essifying sibilant S's in our style, which was a very interesting confrontation of like self-loathing or sort of the the internalized homophobia that we carry with us because of society. And it was a very conscious choice to call our movie Summoning Sylvia, because we didn't want to shy away from that sibilant S. We want to own it. And that's what the movie is about, is owning it, owning yourself and your expression and your truth and the way you relate. It's really queer friendship. And, you know, a lot of the times the gay character is the outsider in the worlds that they are in. And in our story, the straight guy is the outsider, which we find really interesting. The movie is largely about assumptions, you know, the assumptions we make about each other and how dangerous that can be. So I think, you know, also with everything going on right now in the conversation surrounding drag and owning it, I think we're really proud of what you kind of walk away with talking about with this movie.
Well, don't go see a drag show. It will turn you straight. No?
Yeah, it's really dangerous and violent for children.
Yeah, right. It's so stupid. I feel like you and Alex, and maybe you and your friend group, your close friends, have conversations on a different plane, on a different level than your average. Like, my friends are like, what show should we see? Or what should we have for lunch? And you and Alex text each other and you're like, how should we change the world today?
No. We also ask, what are we having for lunch? So just, you know. But no, thank you. I mean, it's important to us that our movie has a little bit of social commentary. You know, Get Out was a big inspiration for us. And we're like, what is that? What is the gay version of that? You know, and obviously we want to continue to tell stories about gay characters that are not about illness and death and persecution and coming out. We've seen enough of that. And it's important to see that, but it's also important to see gay characters thrive.
Yeah.
And, that was a big thing for this movie is making sure that our characters thrived.
It was interesting to me that Michael Urie, sorry, not Michael Urie. I love Michael Urie. In your movie, Michael Urie. Brandon Uranowitz, when I was interviewing him for Burn This.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is the first time in my career. He's been doing this for decades, right? He said, this is the first time in my career I've played an openly gay character where being gay was not part of the plot.
Yeah.
I said, and that just was like, as a hetero white cis man, right? That stuff doesn't occur to me as often as it should.
Of course.
And that moment right there made me realize that start noticing all of these characters and all of these shows, and it's a trope. It's a frickin' trope that I'm tired of. I really am. I'm really tired of like, oh, there's a gay character. He's got to be the silly one. He's going to show up in drag. That's what they always do. That's ridiculous. And so to have a story, I love these stories like Summoning Sylvia, that like the underlying through line. Yeah, the through line is in this movie that you and Alex have brilliantly written. I can't say enough good things about it. It's friendship and it's bonding. And it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. And the outsider, I don't want to give away spoilers, the outsider at the end is wrapped into all of this. And it's just phenomenal the way that you two have written this and brought it to the screen in a way where it doesn't hit you over the head with it, but you walk away maybe unconsciously, possibly unconsciously, saying like, oh yeah, that's normal. And because it is.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying all of that. And something that's been exciting for us is that we have done some test screenings of this movie with different demographics, and we largely feel like it's received very well by straight people, which is I'm like a little nervous about the gay community, just because, you know, in our canon, a lot of the gay horror, you know, that you've seen is thirsty, it's fleshy, it's shower scenes, it's slitting throats, it's, you know, pulp, it's, you know, and that's not what this movie is. For the most part, it's more verbal wordplay than visual feast in terms of flesh, I guess. But I don't know. I hope it resonates in the way that we intended. But, you know, we have to sort of let go now and let whatever happens.
Well,
you know?
I think it's great. And where can we stream it now?
Right. So April 7th, you can purchase, rent this film on demand wherever you can find it on demand. So that means Amazon Prime and Vudu and all those places you go to rent.
God, everybody needs to see it. It's just so good. Actually, oh, well, maybe I won't go on into something else because I want to keep talking about Frankie Grande.
I mean, who doesn't, right? I love Frankie. Obsessed.
Were you part of the casting process, or did you like kind of leave that over to your casting director and
Yeah,
whatnot?
no, we definitely had a casting director, Steven Tyler O'Connor, who's great. But we were very much involved in the casting process. Very important to us.
And there's different, I guess. Frankie is the most extreme of just being outside of the box, right?
And the witchiest of them all.
The witchiest, yes. That's a good way of saying it. And did you have him in mind when you were writing this? Do you have anybody in mind when you're writing these characters?
We wrote it for Frankie.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Cause
So Frankie had done a small character in our digital series Indoor Boys, and he was someone who he didn't know very well. I knew a little bit because he closed Rock of Ages in the role that I originated, and so there was a special connection there, and we bonded over that. But Alex and I were living in LA and starting this digital show, and we wrote this character, and we took a risk. I didn't really know his work, and Frankie not only was incredible in that role, but he just blew us away with his kindness, his generosity, his collaboration, his humility, and we sort of fell in love with him over the span of 3 seasons of that web series. And so then when we are writing this script, we specifically wrote a role for him because we were so enamored, and he jumped at it.
Yeah, he's perfect for it. I mean, everybody was perfect for it. I can't imagine anybody else in those roles.
Yeah, no. That was the only one that we were like, that's Frankie's part. There were other roles that had faces in our head, but we were flexible.
After these messages, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Did Michael Urie ever have a scene with anybody else? Because
no.
Because even the final scene, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. The final scene, he could have been cut in without anybody else on set.
I cannot confirm or deny.
Poor guy.
Michael is very busy.
Yes, he is.
He's a very fancy, busy guy. So we shot him out quickly. Yes.
Amazing. And speaking of fancy, amazing people, do you have Meryl Streep on speed dial now?
I wish. Yesterday when I posted that video of us dancing to a chorus line together.
From Only Murders in the Building backstage, yes.
Yes. So before I posted that, I needed her consent, obviously. And so what's even better than the video is the 10 minutes I spent in her dressing room asking for permission and then us chatting. I mean, that's the part that I'm still going over in my head. Every moment with Meryl on set is mostly probably innocuous to her, and she forgets about it as soon as she leaves me, but I'm replaying it over and over in my head. It's just a dream.
I love the theatrical crossover with Only Murders. I mean, again, Marty Short and Selena Gomez and everybody, Ali Stroker.
Steve Martin.
Yeah. What?
Don't forget Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, that guy. Steve Martin, yes. Everybody in general has such a theatrical background, but again, it's and Nathan Lane, of course. And did you get to work with Nathan again?
I didn't. No, because Nathan is in seasons 1 and 2. He's not in season 3, and so I wasn't able to hang out with good old Uncle Nathan.
Oh, poor guy. Well, being on set though, I feel like it's got to be such a different experience. Or is it a different experience when you're on set with a bunch of actors who have professional Broadway professional theater experience versus people who have only done TV and films? I feel like it's sort of a different mindset.
Yeah, you know what? It's not too far away from how it felt being on Smash. Being on the set of Smash, there were tons of Broadway talent and veterans littered across that series. But I was young, and I was I don't know, it was overwhelming, it was such a huge budget show. It's DreamWorks, Spielberg. This is a different experience in the same way that like being on Broadway in my early 20s was a certain experience, but then coming back to the boards when I was 30 in SpongeBob was a richer experience because I knew more and I had experienced more life and I knew how special that was to come back to Broadway. So same thing with being on this set that's just littered with Broadway legends. It's just, what I have to do is disassociate, because if I think too hard about what's happening, I'll freak out, and I will lose my cool, and you got to keep your cool when you're on set with these people. You can't be a super fan, which, I am a super fan of Uncle Marty Short. He told me to call him Uncle Marty. So don't be mad. That's Uncle Marty is his name.
Uncle Marty.
Just some comedy uncles.
I cannot imagine what it was like on set, and of course Selena too. She's just phenomenal, and
yeah.
God, that is an envious moment to be on a show like that, where it's the theatrical prowess of all the cast with the talent, the acting talent in general, on a show that is just so good, right? It's third season for a reason, but. You mentioned SpongeBob too, and remember now your ex-computer wife now is a Oscar nominee.
Oscar nominee.
God, Stephanie Hsu from SpongeBob.
That's right.
I cannot believe that. And again, 5 years ago, episode 3, when we were talking, you're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do this writing thing, and I think I'm gonna do this. And then like 5 years later now, you're doing all these amazing things. 5 years later, your ex-wife has an Oscar nomination. You're working with Meryl Streep.
Yeah,
everything's going around. Like, can you imagine? I guess did you foresee this 5 years ago?
Because, first of all, I just want to say I'm so excited and happy and proud of Stephanie Hsu, and she deserves the world, and I'm so thrilled for what's happening for her. But second, to your point about 5 years later, whatever you said, I like the perspective that you give, which is that like, oh my God, it was just yesterday that you were, because to me, it feels like forever, like to me as the creative, I've been working on this movie for 3 years, and that's the longest I've ever worked on one project without sharing that project, so now it's finally ready to see the world, and like, our baby's being born, we got to let it go. We got to let her go off to college. We got to let her see the world. And it's such a strange feeling after working on something, so it's such a solitary experience. Me and Alex have been so like in dark editing rooms and so, for years. And so the fact that you're like, oh my God, it's happening so quick, to me, I'm like, oh my God, it's been so long. And the nature of development in general. I mean, we have 2 other films that we're trying to get made now, and one of them we started writing in 2019, and here we are in 2023, and the film is still not made. But that's what happens, It takes a long time. Same with Broadway. It takes years and years and years if you really believe in something, for it to, finally cross that finish line.
Absolutely, yeah. Some of the greatest shows. I mean. I think about The Journey of the Prom, right? Still one of my favorite shows on Broadway that took 10 years from inception to getting on the Broadway stage.
SpongeBob also took 10 years.
Oh, right. Yeah, which is odd to me because it's something that is owned by a big network, I thought would have more of an oomph behind it, because you have something like Frozen, the Broadway musical, which was fast-tracked and made it, I think, in 2.
I don't know about that. I feel like it was more than 2 years that they were workshopping, like Untitled.
Because the movie came out. Were they working on
You're probably right. You probably know more than I do here, but that's crazy if that's true, because, I mean, with SpongeBob, yeah, there was a big, Nickelodeon behind it, but they don't want to rush it. They want to make sure it's done right, and so they're going to take their time really throwing all the paint at the wall to see what it wants to be.
Do you miss Plankton?
Oh, of course. That was such a pure magical experience. I loved the character and I loved the show and I loved the cast and the director, and it was a really special time in my life.
It was. And something else that we had talked about previously was, you came out of high school and college, you're doing Shakespeare and immediately went into Rock of Ages because, Shakespeare lends itself to rock.
Yeah.
And then Addams Family, and so, but then like you had hit after hit after hit. Yeah, I think you had 3 in a row, and then depression because it all of a sudden just went away.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, and I think what you would just kind of alluded to a little while ago is that when you came back to SpongeBob, that was post. I guess growing up a little bit, because you had told me originally, you're like, that was a lesson I had to learn. And so this is the reason why I brought up the 5 years between then and now, is because it had basically been 5 years between the hits and then when we were talking then. And so now it's about the same amount of time. So like now it sounds like, because you've been working the entire time and you've been writing and taking yourself seriously, as a writer, which you said you were just starting to do back then, that maybe you didn't have the down in the middle between the last time we did an episode and now.
I mean, I've been writing since I was younger, but I like you said, it was hard for me to take myself seriously until I got paid for it, and that was like second half of my 20s. Like, oh, maybe I should take this more seriously because I'm now getting paid for it. And I should, maybe I should do this every day. Like I've been practicing this other part of me. Let's maybe get up every day and treat this like it. But it's really hard when you're alone and self-motivating. And I have to say, like finding Alex, and I've had other writing partners in the past that I've loved working with. But when I found Alex and we sort of started collaborating on Indoor Boys and finding our voice together as writers, it was like a marriage. It was like finally finding my other half in terms of creativity and sharing the same voice. And it led to an accountability that was sort of unparalleled in my life of, not having to only self-motivate, but having someone else, pick up that slack if you wake up and you're not feeling like you're firing off on all your cylinders and you're not totally the best writer that day. They're going to pick up your slack and then you're going to pick up their slack the next day. Or, having your certain strengths that complement each other's weaknesses, but then like through time, they kind of meld together and like you picked up a lot of his strengths and he picked up a lot of yours. And being able to share a screen on Zoom and write jokes in front of each other's face and fail and still know that the other person isn't going to run away, because there's a trust that has built over the span of a handful of years, where now I know that Alex knows I'm not my worst joke. So I can fail. I can fail freely in front of him and still have confidence that this is, he's not going anywhere, and vice versa. So
I think
it's a really powerful thing.
I think that's a really powerful motto, is I'm not as bad as my worst joke.
Right.
Because I would be really bad if I lived by that.
I mean, we all would. So,
I mean, I'm
Alex
a Walking
really
Dad
changed.
joke anyway.
Sure. Well, I love a dad joke. You're welcome with me. You're safe with me.
My kids love it too. They always love that stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, that's so cool. Have you ever thought about going back to Billy Green?
I mean, sure. There was a time when I started developing a half hour when I was living in LA, centered around Billy Green. But then we started Indoor Boys, and I just sort of let that die.
I love Billy Green. So if you don't know what Billy Green is, it was a little limited. What was it? It was YouTube, right? It's like
YouTube, early
YouTube, where you were just like the epitome of the worst auditioner ever. Everything you could do wrong in an audition, Billy Green did wrong.
That's right.
And I love
just
that.
Annoyed everyone in his path. It's that YouTube series is just every cameo is a Broadway star, and like they're all I don't know. I mean, that was the beginning of me getting in a long contract on Broadway and being like, okay, I've done the same show for a month now. I'm stuck in this thing. And it's such a, I realize how lucky it is to be stuck in a hit. But
Right.
creatively, I started getting stifled. I started feeling like, how can I keep myself inspired and interested and curious? And so, making backstage content with the Rock of Ages kids was like the beginning of that bug, that scratch I needed to itch, and then I couldn't stop, and then I was making sort of narrative web series, and learning how to hold a camera and learning how to edit and create a through line, and failing a lot but learning a lot, and Billy Green turned into It Could Be Worse, and It Could Be Worse turned into Indoor Boys, and Indoor Boys turned into now we're making movies. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
learning publicly too, learning and putting it all up there.
It Could Be Worse. That was the first thing that you sold, right? That was that turning point
Yeah.
when you're like, yeah, I can do this for real. I can write for real.
Yeah, we got it up on Hulu for a 2-year contract, and that was really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you even start with that? Like, if you were going to say, all right, aspiring young writers out there who have a great story, I mean, it seems like it's all about who you know. It seems like it's all about where you are at the right time from the outside. So where do you even get the meeting where you're like, I'm going to pitch this to Hulu?
Basically, I feel like I was a little lucky because I was on Broadway when I started doing this stuff. And so there was a fan base who were attuned to the content. They were waiting for content that had to do with the cast of the show that they loved. And then that content became sillier and more specific. And so they started becoming fans of the content. And then you create a larger audience online. But really, I did wear a producer hat in my early 20s and have the cognizance to be like, well, I won't get any eyeballs on this unless I have someone fancy in it, which is, it's not
wrong.
It's cheap, but it's like something that I identified early on that, like, in order for traffic to come, I need them to be interested in. So, a lot of young people are like, let the work speak for itself. Well, sure, but you also need to get them there first. So I would be calling in a lot of fancy favors with people I was working with and creating this fan base that was growing, and then just continually asking favors. The thing about established, famous people working for you on a very small scale is give them something enticing to do, like give them a fun person to play with that they want to work with, or give them, I don't know, like there are ways that you can strategically acquire what you need to acquire, if that doesn't sound completely gross.
Slightly.
A little bit.
That actually reminded me of your character in Rolling Calls.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Rolling
I'm
Calls.
just, at the end of the day, just a dirty producer who's just cheating every. No. I don't know. It's about developing relationships and friendships and paying it forward too. That's something, as whenever anyone asks me to do their podcast, interview, web series, sketch comedy, whatever, I most of the time say yes if I can, if I'm available, because I'm constantly asking people to do things for me. That's the same thing with like feedback on scripts. Like I am always needing people to give me criticism, and that's not fun for people to do, is to sit down for 2 hours and focus on your work. No one cares about your baby more than you do, and you have to like convince people to care, to help, to give feedback. And because of that, whenever someone sends me a script, I really try, within the week, to carve out a couple hours to give them good feedback, you know? So
I would, just quick, I mentioned Rolling Calls. Everyone go check out Rolling Calls, also here on the Broadway Podcast Network. Rolling Calls is a radio comedy that you star in, and it's just great.
Very funny.
Very funny.
It's a very funny show. I enjoyed doing that a lot.
Yeah, that was great. Bum, 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 commercial break. And now we're back. All right, so 3 closing questions.
Yes.
Remember, I don't know if you remember your previous answers. I wrote them down, so we're going to be able to compare and contrast. But I'll ask you the same questions and see how they changed. So the first one, now, what motivates you?
What motivates me? I mean, at the end of the day, the same thing motivates me as when I was a child, which is like laughter, which is like, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I don't get drunk off the sound of someone laughing at a joke I wrote. Like, it's just the best feeling in the world.
You said that. You already said that in episode 3, and other great works of art that motivate you. Watching other people's great works.
Oh, sure. Well, that was a more pure answer, actually. That's a better, more artistic answer. Yeah. The other artist. Yeah.
All right. So the next question. Now, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Try not to get the job in the audition. Focusing on booking the job is not what you should focus on in your audition. It should be the opportunity to show off. Seize the opportunity to act, because you won't be doing it very much when you first come to the city. You'll be more of a professional auditioner, and you will be auditioning a lot. And it's hard not to try to play casting director. And like, what is it that they want exactly? And how can I check off everything that they want? It's impossible. And it's just much more productive to treat those auditions as an opportunity to show off your talent and to act and to make fans of whoever is behind the table, instead of booking that specific job. Yeah, I think that is a very valuable thing that I could have used more as a kid, as a young person.
It was actually Michael Urie who, the answer to this question, he said, be the person that others want to work with the next time. And
that's great.
Your answer just reminded me of that too. Yeah. So it's not about getting that role. It's about showing that you have talent. And then so many people have had callbacks after an audition for a different role, because they can see that you're not right for that role, but because you're nice and they want to work with you, they'll give you something else, or they'll write you something.
Or, a year later, they're doing another show and you're right for that certain character. That's happened like more times than you would think.
Yeah. So the first time I asked you this question, you said, stop taking yourself so seriously, don't quit piano, and save money.
Oh. Again, all 3 great things that I should have done. Amazing. I don't disagree with those.
Yes.
With
also good
well.
advice.
Yes.
Okay. So the last question: if you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh, wow. Huh. Okay. Well, I think Cabaret is a masterpiece, and I will always enjoy that, no matter what. But there's so many shows. That's such that would be sad to only see that one forever.
Well, you did say Cabaret the first time.
I did?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. That's the same. That's absolutely the same. All right. So everyone, please go see Summoning Sylvia. Find it online wherever you rent your movies. And how else can we find you on the social medias these days?
I am back on Instagram, Sir Wes Tay.
Demand respect on Instagram.
Sir, give me the respect I deserve.
Not that guy, Wes Tay. No. Sir Wes Tay, you're not on TikTok? I thought I saw you on TikTok. No. Good for you.
No.
Good for you. It's going to get banned anyway.
There you go.
Maybe. Who knows?
No, leave it to the kids.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. I am on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok. So you can connect with me. Leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening now. Music you're hearing now is from Jukebox the Ghost. Conversation was from Wesley Taylor. Thanks, Wes. This has been so
Thanks,
fun.
Alan.
And then we got to do it again in less than 5 years from now, because you're going to, when you win all of your Oscars for all of your things, we'll have you back.
Yes. You heard it here first.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.